So I'm going to change the brake rear discs on the Nissan X-Trail. This Nissan X-Trail was first registered in 2017, so it's the one with electronic brake, parking brake, which comes on automatically. The issue about taking the garage is obviously it costs a lot of money to the garage can do it, so I'm just trying to give you a bit of a DIY tip in order for you to disengage the parking brake as well as changing the rear discs. I hope you enjoy the video. So firstly then what we need to do is ensure you've got the keys in the car, switch on the ignition, which we've just done there, and then put your foot in the foot brake, alright, and then press and hold down the release brake. Light goes out, alright, and therefore the electronic brake is off. Now that you've done that, just knock the ignition off. Job done. Oh, forgot to mention, also check that your front wheels are chocked as well. As you can see then, I've jacked up the vehicle underneath the cross member, well, there's low suspension arm, sorry, and I've also put an axle stand underneath as well to support the weight of the vehicle. I've left the jack in place just so to give that extra added support. Taking the wheel off then, I'm going to use my ratchet with my 21 mil socket on, whip off the wheels, and obviously not forgetting the anti-theft locking nut needs to come off as well. So as you can see, that's the disc that needs to come off. So first and foremost, we're going to remove the brake caliper, and then the carrier arm for the brake caliper. That's got to come off, and then from there the disc has got to come off at the same time or thereafter. Points to note then, obviously the problem with the Nissan is that the piston itself, okay, has to be wound back in. It's not something that you can push back in. You've got to have a special winding tool, and it's a three-pronged on three prongs on the piston, and you'll see that in later on in the video. So I'm going to do the lower brake caliper bolt. What I've used on there is a 13 mil socket, so I'll use it on the bottom one, and also I'll use it on the top one as well, so I can remove the bolts a lot easier. You'll notice as well that it's got like a sliding caliper. That's what you call it, like a sliding caliper, and on that point there, okay, you probably need like a 17 mil spanner, but I'll confirm that in a little bit. So like I said before, with it being a sliding caliper, I've actually had to put on a 17 mil open-ended spanner on to stop the pin from turning. This will then I'll just use an opposite force and just to allow me to undo the bolt. So the bolt's coming undone, right, and the 17 mil comes off. Using the top one again, put the ratchet on. If you can't get the ratchet on with this with the socket, which is a 13 mil socket, then I suggest using an extension bar, 1/2 inch drive extension bar. And we'll show you what the brake pads are like in a little bit. So with a screwdriver or pry bar, then what we'll do is just force the caliper open, and the caliper comes back. And as you can see, as I mentioned before about the three prongs on the piston, which you need to be careful of. So now we're going to break off take off the carrier. Right, and then what we're using is a 17 mil ring spanner to take off the carrier bolts. Okay, now these will probably be torqued down, so you might need to use a hammer to give you that a bit of extra leverage, a bit of force to knock the spanner down in order to release the bolt. As you can see, you've got the brake pads there still being held in place by the carrier itself. So you can see there the ring spanners go to the back of the carrier bolt. Okay, it's a little bit awkward to get into, but you can actually do it. Get it now. As you can see, with the bolt being undone, my dad is holding the brake caliper itself. You need to support it, and then obviously from there, once all the bolts are, he's going to prise off the carrier support bracket. So as you can see, then you can tell that the brake pads are completely shot, worn out. They're going to get replaced along with the rear brake disc. Now we've already done one side, and we're just going to do the near side, the passenger side. Points to note then, when you are changing the brake pads, just remember these shims, these anti-squeal shims, they need to come off and be replaced onto your new brake pads on both sides. Okay, and you won't get them with the brake pads that you get, so you need to take them off the ones that are already in situ. When you get your new brake pads, note that this is the inner brake pad because it's got the extended I don't know, extended piece of metal on it. I don't know what it's used for. Obviously probably just to help pull it in or push it out when it gets changed over. But just make sure that this one with this long part needs to go on the inside of the brake disc, so it actually fits on onto the inside of the disc. Okay, like so. So just get to clean up the carrier. Get as much muck off it as you can. So as you can see then, with a bit of wire brush and a screwdriver, it's actually taken off the scale on the carrier itself. When we all put it back together, then what we'll do is we'll just put a bit of copper slip on there, anti-seizing compound, just to help slide the brake pads back into position with a lot more ease. So once we've done that, then we're just going to put some brake cleaner on the disc, and that's just to help get rid of any residue, oil or grease that help keep the disc in a tip-top condition, in a new condition prior to putting them onto the vehicle itself. Your brake cleaner, you can just get any from any auto spares shop in and around the UK, or for that matter around the world. So as you can see then, that the brake caliper it's got like a plastic shroud around it. You've got to make sure that doesn't get damaged whilst removing it. It's pretty hard to damage them, but that's it, just got to be extra careful. And it's the caliper itself then is just actually leaning up on the suspension arm there. It isn't going to fall, so it's quite safe up there. Just keep. So next thing, we've got to remove the brake disc itself. The brake disc isn't bolted in anywhere, it's just held on in place. The carrier and the brake caliper will hold the disc in place when it's pulled back together, so there's no actual bolts or nuts you need to remove. You just got to remove it, all you got to do is give it a good old whack with a hammer, and that'll start getting it off. So after a good old few whacks of the hammer, it's actually broke free, so it's just got to be a case of getting removed. You might find that whilst you're doing it, you might think it's not going to come off, but you just got to persevere and keep on hitting it. And as you hit it, just spin the disc with your hand, and that should free it off. And as you can see, you got a scale build up on the inside, especially on the rim, where it would normally sit on the hub of the wheel itself. So you just got to, like I say, persevere. Whilst you're hitting the disc as well, ensure that you do not hit your threads for your wheel nuts, because you don't want to damage them. So just be extra cautious when you are doing it. So with this disc then, you can see the scale, and also how the brake pads have basically run uneven. The garage advised me to change the discs over, which I am doing now, as you can see. But I mean, you can see that the scale build-up is pretty bad, and it does need replacing. The driver's side was even worse, so hence why I'm putting these on now. That's the driver's side. As you can see, they're pretty poor, and these ones here are the old driver's side brake pads, which are knackered. So what we're doing now then, we're just putting some copper slip on, so it's anti-seizing compound. Okay, we're putting that on the inside of the rim of the disc, just to help it sit on a lot easier, to make it a lot easier to sit on, sorry. Points to note on this one then, keep the grease away from the disc itself, as in this part of the disc, you don't want it on there. If you do find you do get grease or oil on there, then you need to use your brake cleaner, which we showed you before, to get rid of the grease. Disc fitted then, as you can see. You don't need any screws or any bolts to lock it in position. So now that the disc is fitted, what we're going to do now, we're going to do the piston on the brake caliper. All right, you've got to remember that you've got to support this caliper whilst you're doing it back. You'll notice, as I said before, you've got 3 prongs or 3 slots within the piston. Now the piston itself needs to be wound back, so therefore you've got to buy a special winding tool. You can get them from your local Auto Express factors or some auto shops that may sell kits. I found one online by a company called Laser. The product code was 6329 Laser. It's a rewind tool. They have an adjustable tool which fits inside the slots. The one I got doesn't have it, so therefore I've had to make an adapter to fit in place, which I'll show you in a second. So this is the kit that I bought from a company called Euro Car Parts. It's made by Amtech, 21 piston rewind kit, and as you can see, you've got several different adapters for different manufacturers of the car. Unfortunately, Nissan have got a 3-pronged piece, shim, which fits in place. Amtech don't do that, or Amtech, sorry, don't do that. So we've had to make one and adapt it in order for it to fit in place. So this is what was made in my dad's workshop there. It's got 3 protruding points on it, which then obviously will fit in the piston. It's then supported by the rewind tool, and the rewind tool slots onto it like so. Like so. Okay, and that'll do the job. So what we've done, we've added a shim to it just to give that extra support, and we're going to use this now to turn the piston back on the brake caliper. So that's it sat in place there, and as you can see, the notches are inside the piston itself. What we're doing, we're just adjusting the thread, alright, and making sure that the plate, this plate here, is underneath the caliper itself. And then with the handle, we want to turn it, and as you can see, let's turn the piston back in. Now you do it righty tighty, lefty loosey. Okay, and it should, well, not should, it does put the piston back in. So it does take a bit of time, but actually it does go in after a bit of perseverance. Now when we first did this, we weren't sure, it was a bit of trial and error, so you had a vernier gauge in just to make sure that the piston was actually going in. We took the measurement to make sure the piston was going in, but after a few moments we short realised it actually did go in, no problems. But this is the only way you're going to get the piston, is by getting in a rewind tool. So now that the piston's completely wound in, you can't turn the handle any further. Okay, it's gone rock hard, and that the piston's completely in. All right, and then what you got to do is just give it one turn slack back to slacken it off. Yeah, and then from there you should be able to remove the rewind tool. So now that the piston's in, what we've got to try and do is make sure that the slot where I'm pointing with my finger is in either the 12 o'clock position or the 6 o'clock position, because basically the brake pad needs to slide into that slot there, and we'll show you in due course what we're on about. So we've just got to slacken it off, turn it, yeah, and then with a 22mm open end spanner, so do the bar.
Oh, it goes that way, isn't it?
And that's the piston completely in situ. Seal's fine, rubber's okay, no problems there. Alright, just got to be extra careful with it, you don't actually damage it. So what we've done then, we've just got a bit of anti-slip compound, copper slip. We'll just put it lightly on the support caliper, the support bracket for the caliper, and for the brake pad to sit into. Right, so what we'll do now is just fitting the brake pads in situ. The pad themselves got like a spring-loaded clip there. They have to be on the inside. Thanks, Dad. They have to be on the inside. Okay, in other words, to stop the pad from the pad from coming out. So just there, that spring-loaded clip. Okay, that's the same on the bottom as well as the top as well. Now you might find it a little bit difficult to get into. Just got to persevere. Right, sometimes we've noticed what we have done in the past is that when we have been putting these in, that the spring bends out ever so slightly, so you just need to get a pair of pliers and then just squeeze them ever so, and then push it, and it should fit in fairly easily. But make sure that you clean the carrier up first before you put the pads back in, because without the carrier being cleaned up, you won't get the pads back in. So now that both pads are in situ on the carrier, just as and when you're putting them in, just remember at no point should you have any residue, whether it be oil or grease, onto the brake pad, because that will then make the brake pad ineffective and probably make them unserviceable. So you probably might have to buy some new ones, I would suppose, unless you can get them cleaned up fairly quickly. So this brake pad here, then, this is going to be the inner brake pad where the piston's going to be sat on. And as you can see, you've got the circular mark there from where the piston's been sat. And as I mentioned before, where they've got the 3 notches on the piston itself. Okay, that part of the brake pad with a notch on it will sit inside the groove on the brake piston. Okay, I'll quickly show you what I'm on about. So as you can see, you mentioned before about the notch. Okay, the 3 notches. One of the notches on the brake pad will actually sit inside the notch itself on the brake piston. So the carrier is back in position on the brake disc. And my dad's just putting the bolt back in. And you'll do the same on the bottom one as well in due course. Now, as you can see, my dad's been trying to wind it in there, and what the issue is that the carrier wasn't sat in place properly, so he's going to make sure it's sat correctly before he's trying to attempt to put the bolt in. Now that it's sat in properly, once you get in, not a problem. Now my dad's having to use a ring spanner because we can't get a 70mm socket in because of the distance between the the brake pipe support bracket, which I'm pointing up there, and the bolt. So that's why my dad's using a 17mm ring spanner. So now that the 17mm bolts have been tightened up with using a ring spanner, ideally what you should be doing is get the torque wrench onto the bolt face to get it torqued on to the specific tightness. We don't have one of them, so what we're doing is use basically brute force. Chances are stripping the threads on the bolt is nigh on impossible. However, you know, just be careful in what you do. So the calipers, the support bracket is in position. As you can see, the brake pads are in position also, and now it's just a case of placing the brake caliper itself back onto the support bracket. Okay, hopefully that shouldn't take too long. Now, but what we did find out when we did the driver's side brake caliper is that last night is that we didn't have it fully wound in, and then we found it quite difficult. We also realised as well that whilst we were putting the caliper back on position, we couldn't get the caliper all the way in, and that was because of the notch on the inside of the brake pad on the inner side wasn't sat in the piston correctly. So therefore we had to turn that piston in order for that notch to sit in it. Once we'd done that, then there was no problems. When we are putting the caliper back in position, what we've done is with the bolts as well, we just put a bit of thread lock on there, just to help keep the bolt in position, just to keep it so it dries on. It's basically thread lock is like a glue for the thread. It stops it from coming undone. So for there, then we're just placing the piston back over, or the caliper back over. As I said, we're trying to get the piston itself lined up with the notch on the brake pad. So we tried putting the piston, the caliper back on. It wouldn't go back in, so we've put the winding tool back on, and we'll just turn it a little bit more. Undo it again. And hopefully this time it should sit in. And as you can see from the piston, it's actually further in than what we originally was.
That's it.
Right. So pistons, the caliper's back in, bolts are going back on, and as you can see, it sits a lot further in. Now all we're doing now is putting the bolts back in situ. Put the 70mm back on, as in 70mm combination spanner, and now I'm just going to tighten it up. Do the same on the bottom as well. So now that the caliper's back in position, the bolts are tightened up. Okay, they were tightened with a ratchet with a bit of tension on it. You can always use a torque wrench if you have one, but I don't know what the torque settings are for it. Disc back in place. There's a bit of residue on the disc, but we'll put some brake cleaner on that and get that cleaned up. But that in essence is how you change your disc for a Nissan X-Trail with the electronic parking brake on it. Quite straightforward. Yeah, hope it works out. So back in the car then. So I'm back in the car then, and what I'm going to do then is just put the ignition back on and then put the electronic brake back on. So ignition back on, and then from there then the brake comes back on. Alright, you just try and turn the disc, Dad. Solid. Alright, I'll keep my foot in the foot brake, release the brake, and I'll take my foot off the foot brake, even though the front wheels are still chopped. I'm not going to go anywhere. Turn the disc, Dad.
Yeah, fine.
I'll put my foot in the foot brake. Try and turn the disc, Dad. Locked. Okay, so that's completely locked then. Now I'll just put it on and the job and then knock the ignition off.